Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Judging Nerd Culture. I'm Ollie.
And I'm Jess.
We're talking about some more One Piece today, which is about time. Roughly 6 months late. But we're talking about the Baratie and Arlong Park arcs, which have a couple of my favorite scenes in the entirety of the show since ever. It's always two of my favorite scenes ever. So I don't know, because I know that I've definitely talked to you about, I'm going to say 70% of One Piece, just in general, by existing next to each other. But we were definitely not together when I was going through the early stages of One Piece.
Well, no, you were a child.
Yes. What I mean is, like, I think there's maybe one part of this that I've talked about before. But, like, have I really I don't think I've actually, like, gushed about my thoughts and feelings about these earlier sections with you before.
I don't think so. I think most of it is just, like, you telling me about the newest chapter that's come out.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. That's fair. It makes sense, but I'm excited because these earlier arcs, these two specifically have, like I said, two of my favorite scenes ever. And if we had been together, oh boy, you would have talked your ear off.
You are ready to, honey.
I know. Hey, Mabel. So, Baratie, what's going on?
I feel
rejected.
Yes. So, Zoro and Luffy, and his two bounty hunter friends are, I believe at this point they also have Sanji.
They have Usopp.
Usopp.
Yeah.
I believe they also have Usopp at this time. They are...
Stop it.
Mabel. She really just does it until somebody gets up.
Super.
Just chill out, Mabel. They've collected Usopp. He's a part of the team, and they are sailing around waiting to find food.
Mm-hmm.
Nami is also with him at
this
point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to be talking about two different sections, so I'm getting them mixed up a little bit. But they are running out of food, and they're hungry, and they find this giant fish-shaped restaurant on the open sea.
Which, I'm not a big fish man. Like, I don't love to eat fish for a lot of different reasons. But I would still go to a restaurant that was a giant floating fish in the ocean. Mm-hmm. Like, that's just cool. That is seamless marketing. And I would love to eat that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's definitely a touristy place, at least for pirates and men who are just sailing around the seas. They get to this giant ship and end up getting up to no good.
Like usual.
Doing some shenanigans.
While they're getting onto their own shenanigans, there's also Jean, who shows up to also cause some more trouble. Jean is just kind of a nameless pirate, like a worthless pirate. He's not super popular, famous, or anything along that along those lines. He's part of Don Krieg's fleet, and he shows up just starved to death. And Luffy, at this point, has already caused enough trouble that he's working off a debt in the kitchen. And he witnesses Sanji feeding this starving man who was kicked out of the restaurant by the other chefs for being a piece of crap pirate and also having no money.
Yeah.
And that act of kindness from Sanji was the thing that the really just cinched it and led to Luffy deciding this is gonna be our cook. And damn it.
Yes. So Luffy sees Sanji do this and is really happy to have found his cook. And when Luffy wants you on his crew, it's gonna happen.
Yeah, it's pretty unfortunate for you if that's how things shake out. If you had, any other plans in life. So from there on, the rest of this arc goes. For the rest of this arc, what basically happens is that Don Krieg shows up, requests help. Sanji helps him for no particularly good reason, and then they come back refreshed, healed, not starving anymore, and they try to take over the ship and kill everyone. Of course. And turns out Sanji did the wrong thing, but it was the right thing.
Mabel keeps meowing at the wall. We're not sure why, but you might hear some meows in the background. She's piping up. We have ghosts on the walls, apparently. I like this arc as well because I just really like Sanji. I think he's a fun character. He can be a little pervy, but it's anime and it's old anime, and there's always that character.
I mean, for that era, it's not as bad as it could be.
Yes.
But it's not great. No.
Mabel, why are you getting into things? But I have a fondness for Sanji, so I like this little bit. And I also liked learning the relationship he has with Chef Zeph, mm-hmm. which is really fun. It's a very bad relationship. They don't seem to like each other at all, but they actually do love each other. Mm-hmm. It's very toxic masculinity with an underlying like they're pretending to have toxic masculinity when really they do love each other.
I think it is toxic, but it's still loving. But I mean, to be fair, they had a bit of a strange coming together.
Yes.
Chef Zeph in his youth was also a rambunctious pirate. Also, one of which he was a pretty famous pirate for his time.
Yes.
Pretty popular, lived out on the Grand Line, and he seems to leave reference to Luffy about going to paradise in the Grand Line, calling it paradise, seemingly knowing about the other half of the Grand Line, meaning that he may have been there, which means that he could have fucking folded Don Krieg. He just didn't do it.
Yeah.
Which means
he's just old.
Yeah, I guess he is just old, but like peak age in One Piece is around 50 for some reason. Every character is at their strongest when they're around 50 something. So like he should have been fine. But that's not the point. Point is during this time as his pirate, he was just going after various vessels, one of which was a particularly like fancy ritzy restaurant that Sanji as a child was working on as a little sous chef boy, or that's probably not what it was. Sous chef's probably pretty high up there. Whatever the lowest rank of chef is, and
like fry cook or something.
Yeah. And in the flashback, for what it's worth, you see Sanji as kind of a uppity chef boy, where he's like, why are you other chefs eating the fucking leftovers? That's gross. Just toss it out. And all clearly having some strange level of standards that's a little higher up than the people around him. And then Chef Zeph attacks, and things go real bad for him. And Chef Zeph, actually, because due to some storm and some nonsense, they both get stranded on a big fucking rock with no way down, no way out, ocean in every direction, but a sack of food. Seemingly, Sanji splits the food Chef Zeph splits the food with Sanji a bit unevenly, taking a biggest sack for himself and giving the boy a small one, considering he is a much smaller boy. And after weeks, months, I forget how much time actually passed.
It's a long long time.
It's way too long.
It's way too long for what Chef Zeph has done.
Yes. Near the end of their time on this rock, you see Sanji, and he is Bones. The little boy has become Bones. And Chef Zeph, also not looking great, but when Sanji goes over to basically kill him and take the food, he realizes he hasn't eaten any of the food. Because it wasn't food, it was treasure. And instead, what he did was chopped off his fucking leg with a giant rock and ate it over the past 3 months or something.
Yeah.
That's... that was insane. And since then, Sanji has had a understandable appreciation and love for Chef Zeph, even though they do kind of hate each other.
Yeah. And Sanji now has a complex of, it doesn't matter who you are, if you are hungry, you deserve to eat.
Yeah. I mean, he didn't eat for months or some shit. Like, it makes sense. Trauma and all that. But unfortunately for him, this time it led to another invasion. That again, I do believe Zeph should have been able to just stop, but whatever. I think he just wanted to see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, he's been a chef on this fish boat for a really long time, and this is probably the most exciting thing that's happened in a long while.
Yeah, I mean, he used to live on the Grand Line, just fucking shit up. Like, this is nothing. I also like the idea that with, because he was watching Sanji and Luffy interact and seeing that Luffy wanted Sanji to come along and seeing Sanji's reluctance. And he wanted Sanji to go throughout this arc. And I think he was just kind of waiting, letting it happen to motivate Sanji and Luffy to see, their potential and to get Sanji in the right direction. Because while watching Luffy fight Don Krieg off, Sanji himself becomes motivated to join up and follow along and join the Straw Hats. And that's pretty much the gist of this arc. But there is one last scene that I think is my favorite scene, and the one I wanted to talk about most, which is when, despite this being a Sanji arc, which is very unfortunate, my favorite scene is with Zoro. It's when Mihawk arrives. Mihawk is the reason Don Krieg and his crew are currently starving. I forget how many ships and men Don Krieg says he had. It was like 8,035 ships or some shit.
Which, definitely an exaggeration.
Who knows? Point is, there's one ship left and like 15 people. Because they happened to drift next to Mihawk. And he ruined them. This is one of my favorite scenes, and this is one of my favorite parts in general, just because it's the first introduction of a warlord and just the crazy levels that they exist at. Like, it's not even like a maybe in certain scenarios. Everyone there is below Mihawk, no question. And this character being introduced so early on, being that he is Zoro's ultimate goal, that would be like the One Piece showing up and there it is.
Yeah.
So it was very exciting, especially when I first read through it, and then Zoro challenges him to a fight, and immediately it just gets so like disrespected. Like, it's not even a fight, it's just active disrespect. Pulls out a little knife and it's just like, I'm sorry, I don't have a smaller knife to kill you with. Like, Mihawk is just a bastard.
Well, he knows that this kid has no chance, and if he used a bigger sword, he would chop the kid in half.
It's true. But still, just to pulling out the little thing, it's like, I'm sorry. It's so good. And then they proceed to fight, and it's not much of a fight, but it's, he tries his best. And at the end of it, Mihawk destroys 2 of his swords, and is gonna finish him off when Zoro turns around and she's like, hey, if you're gonna, kill me, here we go. Because a line that gets used in the show, I think, is scars on the back is a swordsman's shame. Is the thing they say. The idea of just being that running away, or getting hit while you run away is a no-no.
Mm-hmm.
But that single interaction, just like, well, if you're gonna kill me, let me look at you while you do it. Excited Mihawk so much. He was like, "Oh, you're crazy! Fucking great!" And so he pulls out his big boy sword and guts him.
Absolutely.
Just, and it's so good. Then Mihawk proceeds to just be like, "Well, that was fun. I'm gonna go now."
Yeah, I mean, this is when Zoro also realizes that he has a long way to go.
Oh yeah,
he has a long way to go before he can actually put up some sort of fight with Mihawk. And I think this is also where Mihawk is like, okay, wow, it's cool to see that there's one swordsman out there who has the potential to someday maybe be on my level.
Yeah, it's just nice to see rookies, having a chance, getting up to something. And that whole encounter ends with Zoro laying there, bleeding, dying, and crying, which is I think the only time you see him cry in the entire series.
Because he's a manly man. He bottles it all up. He's
more masculinely toxic than Sanji is. And Sanji's a womanizer, full stop. Like, that's his whole character. So, but he's just weeping and makes a promise to Luffy that he's never going to lose another fight.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just very, desperate and sentimental, and I loved it. And it's debatable whether he's lost a fight since. Debatable. But he hasn't lost a fight to a swordsman since. So, good on him. Yeah. As all this is happening, Nami takes their ship, the Going Merry, or the Merry-Go, depending on translation you've read, and takes the fuck off. And the rest of it ends with the crew in a couple of different pieces setting off to find Nami and, get her back.
Yeah. They end up using this little dinghy of a boat.
Yeah.
And floating towards Nami's home island, which the bounty hunter brothers are terrified of. They really do not want to go to this island that is being overruled? No.
Overrun?
Overrun, maybe. I don't know. Is in control by Arlong, who is a very dangerous fishman of these parts.
Mm-hmm. And that's essentially where the start of the Arlong Park arc is.
At this point, Sanji is with them, and he went with a dream that someday he would find the blue.
All blue.
The all blue, with all of the world's biggest and best fish.
Mm-hmm. The way the oceans are named in One Piece is just the East Blue, West, South, and North Blue. So the all blue is just fish from all of them.
Yeah, it's the middle.
It's the middle piece.
I've seen a map of the One Piece world, which I don't know if it has a name. Is it Earth?
No, does no name of One Piece Earth.
Okay, well, it's something. The Earth is the One Piece. And the map is...
Yeah, it's a big...
astoundingly confusing.
It's a big X, is what it is. It's a big fucking X. With one long continent just wrapping around the whole world. Yeah, man, that's not... that's not a planet. That's nonsense.
And there's part of an ocean that goes up.
Okay, so by up, you mean across the other way?
Yeah, it goes over the continent.
Oh, there's a tiny, there's a reverse mountain, which is a few arcs later. There, all of the different oceans converge there, and the different currents end up going and making a river that goes up the mountain, and then drains into the Grand Line. And that's how people get into the Grand Line. It's through sailing up a mountain. Yeah. It's One Piece. Maybe it's extra big nonsense. So, going back to Baratie, though, how do you feel about that arc compared to what you've seen so far? Where are we at?
Oh, sorry. Excuse me. It's been a long day. I liked it. I do think it was a little bit more fun than the coming one, the Nami's arc. I think hers might have been more like heartfelt in some parts, or like meaningful, or at least like for more people. But I don't know. I'm just not a big Nami fan.
That's fine.
But I did like the Sanji arc. It was fun. It was cool to see the very creative Baratie. To see that ship and to meet Chef Zeph with his incredibly goofy mustache. To see that Sanji, even though a lot of times has like this air of I'm the coolest chef guy who kneels at the feet of women, but to see that he also has like a side to him that is kind and like genuinely wants to help people. Like if they're hungry, he wants to save them. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Hell yeah. It's definitely a good character introduction for Sanji, and like I said, has one of the fair moments in One Piece with Zoro and his fight with Mihawk and everything. But overall, I think every One Piece arc is really made by the villain in it, and Don Krieg is garbage.
Yeah.
He's just garbage. So it's not one of my favorites by a good margin, but it is a great character introduction.
Well, I didn't say it was my favorite.
No. I'm not putting words in your mouth. I'm just saying, like, it's not like in my top or anything like that, but it is a good character introduction. It tells you everything you need to know about Sanji.
Almost everything.
Almost everything. Yeah, you're right. Sanji, people shit on Sanji for being, kind of a pervert and kind of a piece of shit sometimes, but like, and not the big thing is that people who love Zoro argue with people who like Sanji. About who's a better character, who's stronger specifically for it, because that fucking matters. And Sanji is just not as strong as Zoro. He's close enough, but it's just not. It's a little bit short. And for some reason, people are like, so he's just not as good. Doesn't get as good at fights and all this stuff. But later on, he gets another backstory. He gets 2 full backstories that are like deeply emotional and traumatizing. Zoro's friend died and he took off. That's his whole backstory. Mm-hmm. That's it.
Yeah. Sanji was basically the boy in the iron mask. Like he had a lot more going on, and it doesn't matter if a character has a more sad backstory or not for them to be a better character than the next. But I think Sanji and Zoro are both great characters. And I think they are both very powerful. I think the weird discourse between them is strange. Like, it's like they're both part of the same crew, and I guess it's like, my favorite character is this one, that means they are better than everyone else, sort of deal. So it's like you're just kind of, honestly, just a little biased, and like you just want your favorite character to be the strongest.
Yeah, it's also weirdly influenced by like in-universe stuff. Like it starts in Little Garden when we get to there, where they start challenging each other, and then they start hating each other, and then the viewers start hating each other's. It's weird, man. But oh well, that's what it is. We'll talk more about Sanji being a boy in an iron mask when we get to that 100 years from now. But Arlong Park.
Mm-hmm.
So this arc, what I think is, to me, the one of the most important in all of One Piece, because it starts to not just set up characters and their primary like goals and beliefs. It starts to set up the system of the world itself, the beliefs and the themes of the world of One Piece. It's the first arc where you start to where they start to hint at there being a much more, like, how to say, they start to hint at some of the more painful aspects of One Piece, and they do it in a way that makes Arlong and his crew seem like horrible villains, and they are. But when you watch the rest of this and you understand like the whole context of everything, and you rewatch this, like the absolute hatred that Arlong has for humans and like his disgust of them, it weirdly makes sense. And rewatching it from that perspective is weird. And there's a constant theme in One Piece about like wealth and the evil behind it, and the like, not even like it's not even the idea that just getting money makes you bad or anything. It's just the concept of wealth itself is an evil, corrupting thing. And to see that in Arlong, who was a character who at least early on is just shown as like almost like living evil, like if you just pure hatred and greed, I think it's just a very strong start to the rest of One Piece, the rest of the themes and the meaning behind everything. So I truly love this arc. It's also got a good fucking fight scenes, it's got some good brawls in them.
Yeah, it is a good one. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what else to say. I think Nami's story is very sad. From being an orphan and fostered by an ex-Marine, someone who never wasn't gonna probably have kids, and who was just a tough lady, but was like, oh well, I gotta take care of these two orphans now. And doing her very best, even though like they have this small little orchard and they're kind of poor, to having to join a group of pirates who have then killed your mother and are forcing you to basically not torture, but like just indenture your entire village, the people that you have known and grown up with and have grown to love. So it is really sad. And I understand why Nami would have, the feelings, the motivations, the complexes that she has. I think Luffy also, like, just has, he puts so much faith in people, like, he just already knows that, like, oh yeah, if I do this, they're definitely, like, gonna join my crew and be a good person. Like, he doesn't consider the fact that people might be bad. People might just, like, sometimes aren't good. But he's just like, no, I think you're a good person. You may have stole from me more than once and tried to run away a few times, and maybe killed or beat up one of our crew and betrayed us, but like, I think you should still be on our crew.
Well, I think part of it isn't just that, like, he thinks they're good or whatever. It's just he thinks they're good for them, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, because that's part of the gimmick. They're pirates. They are not good. They are actual villains. They are criminals. Even though they mostly, you know, are nice and help people out, like, they are still criminals. They will steal and whatever else, destroy public property. You know, who gives a shit? They don't care. So, like, he's not looking for specifically good people. He's looking for people who he thinks matter, who thinks are relevant, who he thinks add a spark of something to the crew. So, like, the idea that he would recruit someone who is kind of a dickhead, because she's kind of a dick the entire time. Like, it's not too far-fetched for me. I think what's interesting is that, like, you're right, because the way he does it is just like throwing out, here's a bunch of, like, he just sort of believes is going to happen, puts a lot of faith into them, and then waits. But I think that also, you know, in and of itself is kind of meaningful to Luffy's character. He doesn't worry about, like, well, anything, but he decides, instead of hoping for something, he just puts enough faith in them. By giving them faith, they develop faith in him, you know? It's like respect. People demand respect, but you don't really get it until you give your respect to someone else. It makes sense that these characters who did not want anything to do with them, you know, end up joining him because of the faith he puts in them without any real warrant to it.
Yeah, and it makes them feel a certain way towards him.
Yeah, like if
you're my captain.
Yeah, if a stranger comes up to you and she's like, "You're fucking amazing," and then actively supports you in anything you do, like, all right, dude, I don't know what your deal is, but, like, let's go.
It'd be a little suspicious to me.
Oh, I mean, yeah, in the real world, that's suspicious as hell. That man is not to be trusted, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Man, this arc also shows you how like you were able to see in the previous chapters or whatever how awful pirates can be in this world, but it also shows you just like how I don't know, just overwhelmingly powerful and kind of evil they can be, and how sometimes the Marines or the Navy, however you want to say it,
they're the Marines, but a lot of their uniforms say Navy.
Yeah, how they also are pretty dirty. Like they're you know, the big power in the entire world, really, and they're the cops of the world, the military, and they, you know, are corrupt. They're working with Arlong, taking some of the money and like keeping him in power. They're not going to try to help the people on this island.
It's really interesting too, because with Arlong and the guy that he's working with, forgot his name. Mouse Man is basically what his name translates to. They are disgusted by each other. They both are like, "Oh, that's a disgusting fish man. That's a gross human." Like, they actively hate each other's species. But like Arlong says, it doesn't fucking matter if you have enough money. That matters more than literally anything else. And you know, and they hammer that home with just showing off the Marine willingly just accepting these people being basically enslaved, like an entire island, with various towns being literally uprooted, which is weirdly was kind of funny. Like, I know it was meant to be like a really like kind of tense scene of like how strong the fishmen are, but they went through this town and just literally flipped the buildings. Like, they just lifted them up and put them upside down. Like, yeah, that's scary in terms of strength or whatever, but it is goofy as all fuck.
Yeah. But, I mean, that is One Piece.
That's One Piece.
Yeah, I mean, Arlong's right. Even in the real world, like, as long as you have enough money, you can slide some this way, slide some that way, and you can get away with things, or you can, buy your way into the life that you want. It doesn't matter that he's a fish man. It doesn't matter if you're, whatever race. Like you'd be able to do it.
Yeah, and like I said, that's why I think this arc really starts off the descend into the more into some of the longer lasting themes in One Piece. So it was just very nice to see it to relive that. Also, the individual fights. This arc started off Sanji takes on the third strongest, Zoro takes on the second in command, and Luffy takes on the captain. And that has continued on to today.
And Usopp runs away and takes care of the guy who follows him.
Yep, Usopp will take care of whoever's around, as long as it's not one of the big boys. Usopp was vicious in this fight, though.
Yeah, he has a moment where he is just running away because he doesn't want to die. And he's being followed by one of Arlong's henchmen, and he gets beat up pretty good. And he's like, "Oh man, I can't call myself a pirate, and I've always wanted, and I can't be a part of this crew if I run away and if I lie to them. So I guess even though nobody's watching, I'll know." So I guess I have to beat up this guy.
And bless him, he does. Like, he lights this motherfucker on fire and then beats him with a hammer. Like, I know this is One Piece, so like it was a little goofy or whatever, and like wasn't that strong of a thing. But like that's a pretty vigorous attack. He really laid into this motherfucker.
And he goes back to Arlong Park and he helps out.
Yeah. It was, all in all, I think, a pretty good showing for Usopp. Also a great showing for Sanji and Zoro. Because Zoro, again, mind you, like a few episodes or chapters ago, he just got vivisected. But he's up and running.
Yeah.
With some crude stitching. And when he gets there, he basically takes down all of Arlong's men, except for like his core officers, and eventually takes one of them down too, and then faces off against Arlong for a little while. And Arlong eventually does win. Admittedly, Zoro is half dead. Picks him up and like takes off his bandages. Like, what the fuck is this shit? How are you alive and breathing? I can see your organs. This is fucked up. And that's just a good scene. That's just quality. Meanwhile, Sanji jumps into the water to help Luffy or whatever, knowing full well that I'm going to go down here and fight a fishman in the water. That's a bad decision. That's just outright a bad fucking decision.
He almost drowns.
Yeah. But he makes it. He survives, wins the fight somehow. So
he punches him in his gills, I believe, or he blows into them.
Yeah, that's smart.
Yeah,
smart move. Yeah, it shows off the not just like the dedication or whatever to the crew, but the tenacity of them as characters. Now that they're together, now that they're actually starting to be like a proper fighting force. Especially Zoro, Luffy, and Sanji, like they are known as the monster trio to the fans because they're the strong boys. So it was nice to see them. This is probably as close as they get to working together. They don't typically fight alongside each other, honestly. Yeah. I've said earlier, so personally, this arc is one of the top for me of all One Piece. What about you? I know you are the biggest fan of Nami, which is fair. Like she's got her quirks that can be kind of annoying.
Well, I mean, I haven't read that much yet. There's a lot more to come and a lot more characters to join the crew. But
just based on what you've read so far, obviously.
I don't know. I really liked Usopp's. I think his is my favorite so far. I think Nami's was very meaningful, and Sanji's was very fun, and Zoro's was goofy.
You didn't like Axe Hand?
But Usopp's was, I don't know, it was fun and did have some like meaningful moments, and I really liked Usopp's pirate crew. I'm always a sucker for cute little kids trying to be tough. So far, Usopp's is probably my favorite.
That's fair.
But I do think Nami's was very good. Even though she might not be like my favorite character, I do think what she did, she meant well. And the moment Luffy stretches his daddy long legs and breaks the Arlong Park, like he just crumbles it with a kick.
Yeah, such a good scene.
Cool. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's probably the other panel I was mentioning. The other one that just sticks out as memorable throughout all of the years is just stomping and destroying this monument to like Nami's torment. Mm-hmm. It's very good. I'm excited to continue reading more, but this was fun. I also we forgot to mention a little something throughout these chapters. I think there was some happening maybe before, but I think they really started to pick up in this section. The cover chapters. The first one being how Buggy gets his body back after they send it flying, and the second one being
Kobe.
Yes, Kobe and Helmeppo getting recruited into the Marines, and then having to deal with
his father.
Yeah, Axeham Morgan. I just said his name.
Yeah.
With his father getting arrested and sent off, and some kidnapping and some stuff. And I don't think we've finished I don't think we've gotten to the end of that cover story yet. But it gets good, and the results of it all we see in a couple hundred chapters. But it's lovely. It really sends Kobe on his route towards his glow up.
The fact that while you're reading this manga, you are also reading a different manga. And so, like, usually it's just art that you see during different chapters, different fan art, or not fan art, but like, I guess fan art, but fan art by the artist. Just little goofy things. Maybe, you see, I think it was Bleach, maybe, who, like, their characters would just be in different aesthetic outfits.
Yeah.
Like, you just see the different characters in different aesthetics. But if you don't really notice it, like, I wouldn't have noticed it unless you told me that each cover art is a I guess piece of another story. I wouldn't have noticed.
Yeah, and the thing is, because there are some covers that aren't related to cover chapters, and a lot of the times those ones are just like things Oda wants to draw because he just fucking wants to. But sometimes they're like fan requests, like, hey, can you draw? I think one of them was Mr. Pink and Frankie later on at a bar drinking, and I was like, yeah, I'll draw that for you. But when it's relevant, it's the cover pages, and they always become relevant. Like, they always come back around. So like with Buggy, that's how he gets his body back, and he's going to use it in a few chapters here to deal with some stuff. With this Kobe section, it comes back again a little while later, and you see Kobe and how he's matured from these chapters, from his little private chapters, and like, it's a big deal. It's a big change, which is really disappointing, because for some reason the anime doesn't animate the cover chapters, and that seems insane to me. A lot happens in those cover pages.
I don't know. I feel like that's just a lot of work.
Sure, but like, it feels like it's like.
And I feel like it'd be confusing to people watching.
Maybe, but like, even One Piece, despite the fact that it has very little of it, still has filler. It could be the filler.
I suppose so. I'm
just saying. There's some, especially some of the later ones, are some critical information in them. Like some really important stuff in it. But oh well. Yeah, that is the summation of the Baratie and Arlong Park arcs. Truly, just a delight. Wonderful character introductions, and possibly one of the narratively or thematically more relevant arcs that we've had so far. So I fucking loved it, of course. And that's it for now.
Yeah.
We'll talk about some more One Piece the next time. Bye.